It's an anthology series, and I guess it can be for
Sorry,
both.
no, I'm going round table. Sorry to interrupt.
God forbid you crash the party.
It's an anthology series, and you've assembled very talented creators behind it. Is there any writers that you had approached, but for whatever reason wasn't able to contribute to this first season?
Simon could probably speak more specifically to that, but I understand that did happen, and it had more to do with just they were too busy. So they reached out to some people who were just like, I can't, I'm underwater right now, so excuse me, um, with whatever their day job is. So there were a couple people that passed, but for the most part, we got everyone we approached.
Was it was it hard being able to do the third episode, the Pusher episode, where it's like straight from the comic book? Was that an easy thing to do, or kind of hard?
Was it hard? I mean, what was cool about that one was that Garth Ennis was willing and able to write that one. So that gives it such a like authenticity where it's almost like a lost issue. I think that was part of the reason why we opened on that shot of the comic coming out of the long box, because I wanted it to feel like, oh, did I miss this one? Like, which one was this? Um, so that was really cool because it was just getting him to almost like and I love the series, like I adore it, but just a little more like bring it back to like what the comic was, in simple ways, like obviously Simon Pegg, being Wee Huey and stuff like that. So I think what was hard about it though was we wanted it to look like the comics. And one of the things that Derek Robertson, who is the original artist on The Boys, does, he does a lot of etching on his drawings. So there's lots of scritch and wrinkles and all that. And it makes it look very illustrative, but that's normally super hard to pull off in animation. So it was tricky to remove all that detail and still make it look like his drawings. I remember being really worried about that at one point, but like I haven't seen anyone complain, so I guess we must have got something right.
In one of your previous works, I believe in your background, it said that you you did the storyboard. Did you find that process a lot more fulfilling than coming onto something where there is a background to The Boys, there is a comic book already out there, and there's a whole live action? Coming onto this series, did you feel like pressured at all when you were doing it?
Yeah, what's interesting when you do anything that's like a book adaptation or comic book adaptation, it requires a lot of homework, and I think that's the thing that a lot of people sort of forget, because if we didn't do that, I probably at worst, or at best, just get everything wrong all the time, and then I'd get a lot of notes from Seth and Evan and Eric. Thankfully, though, I had watched all of the Boys series and loved it. So this was like, oh, I think I get this world. Like obviously they still had to guide me, but that made it easy. It's definitely trickier, if you're like doing like a adaptation on like a book series that has like 19 volumes and they're all 800 pages or more. It's a lot of research.
So there were different animation studios that you approached to do the different episodes. How was that process of pairing up like a certain style of animation to like the writer's story and like getting their vision correct?
That was interesting. So the writers came with sort of like a short description of how they saw their short. So they were, some of them were extra specific. Like I think Aquafina said she wanted hers to feel like Pokemon. Others were a little bit like, I don't know, whatever. Do what you feel is right. And then we started to sort of, it was almost like a spreadsheet in a way, where it's like, okay, we have like an anime one, we have like like a Justin Roiland aesthetic, we have this one that looks like the comics. Trying not to repeat ourselves. Sometimes that's hard to do. And then once we were all like in agreement, this is like the style we want, then we hired directors that we felt could accomplish that, and animation studios that could accomplish that. So for example, Laser Baby was directed by Crystal and Derek Thompson, and they're sort of old school Looney Tunes animators. I mean, and I think they're about my age, if not just a little bit younger. but huge fans of like Daffy and I think Derek worked on the original Space Jam and stuff like that. So they were a perfect fit to direct this one, which Seth and Evan had requested would feel like a classic Looney Tunes short. We worked with Snipple in I believe they're in the Philippines, which had most recently worked on Green Eggs and Ham, which also has kind of a sort of a throwback like Looney Tunes sort of aesthetic to it, sort of a Chuck Jones sort of aesthetic to it. So there was a lot of that, like finding the right director, finding the right studio, and making sure it matched, what the writers were requesting.
Is it any different when you're, because of the way that things have changed now with streaming available, when you used to do things for television, there was this, every week there was a new episode, and now it's all, you get the order, and it's, oh, you only have so many episodes, and they have to be done by this date. Was it any difference? Did you have to accommodate for that new type of output?
Definitely. I mean, what was nice about the old school way is a couple things. One is that the episodes would trickle out, so oftentimes, episode one would be airing on whatever Cartoon Network, and we're still finishing episode four, and it's almost a little nerve wracking if you think about it too much, because it's like, it's too late to like press the brakes now. Like we've gotta keep this cadence up. The other thing that I miss about that is it builds sort of a fan momentum when they watch episode one. When fans watch episode one, have a week to digest and talk about it and have fan theories, and then episode two comes out. You can definitely start to get like a sense of what the audience is reacting to, what they like. Like there's been other shows I worked on where it's very clear which character is the fan ship, for example, and sometimes that can be bad or good as it influences the creators. Like, oh, I didn't know that they want those two to be a couple. Should we oblige them? This is different in that we did 8 episodes like in a sealed off bunker, if you will, and there's a possibility they would have hated all 8, and there's no possibility to course correct or anything. So it's very feels much more like secluded. I imagine we're like a novelist, like locking themselves up in a cabin and banging out a book, and then
We can do like one more question, okay?
So like it has the boys in its name, but a lot of the episodes kind of like stand in their own corner. Is that like was that done deliberately to give like the creators freedom to explore whatever, or um, would you have liked it more tied into the main series?
it's interesting. I think that the original concept was just like do whatever you want, reaching out to celebrity writers and saying like, what story would you tell? And but it's interesting because probably the more canonical ones, like episode 8, 1+1, um, is definitely harder to not please the hardcore fans, like the fans of the series, because it's giving you insight and backstory and stuff like that. It made me sort of understand why Warner Brothers, for example, keeps pumping out Batman and Superman animated series or animated straight to videos, because it's like clearly there is an audience for this. If you zoom in on like, oh, there's a janitor at at the Hall of Justice whose wife has cancer. Does anyone care? And that's harder to pull off. But I welcome it because like I just think it's fun to just tell different stories and explore and have fun.
I'm gonna switch.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.